It's rough having conversations with the older generation. As a Gen Z person, I feel that my generation is one of the most misunderstood generations that has ever come. It's like either people overcomplicate our issues, our challenges, or they oversimplify them. There's no middle ground. It's very rare you get the nuanced story, and the older generation tends to oversimplify our challenges. We are battling with things like inflation in our world, and an ever changing job market, anxiety, and many issues that we face. And we're facing an almost sense of purposelessness with life in my generation. And nobody properly understands where it comes from. They just deem us as lazy, spoiled, and too picky. And maybe there is truth to it, but that's just the surface of the problem. It's not the real issue. There are deeper conflicts within my generation that nobody talks about. For a long time, we lived in a world where you were told what to do and how to do it. A lot of stuff was laid out for you. But in my generation, schools don't even prepare us for the future. You go to school, you learn all this stuff, but schools don't teach us about inflation, the stuff that we're dealing with now. Everything is expensive. And schools don't teach us how to pay our bills, how to deal with debt, how to survive on your own out there, how to understand the ever-changing job market. My generation is dealing with change that has happened extremely quick. Over the span of 20 years, there's been so many changes that has happened. The internet has risen, YouTube has risen, social media, artificial intelligence, and every year artificial intelligence is getting more and more advanced. And the job market is changing. It's not simple like the old days where when your parents told you, listen boy, you better get yourself a job. You cannot be a child forever. If you want to have a future, you gotta leave the house and get yourself a job. Or, listen son, we're in the middle of a war and your country needs you. You better get yourself a gun and shoot somebody, alright? If you do not participate in this war, all will be lost. It's not like those days when purpose wasn't difficult to find. I think we shouldn't take for granted the fact that there was a whole generation of young people out there in the past who were given a purpose by war, a lot of war. And war is one of the most powerful thrusts of purpose that a nation can ever experience. And back then, when getting a job, it meant that there was a job to get. It was almost harder not to get a job back then than it is now, because it was just a natural thing that you do. I sweep, I clean, I collect, I fix. And today, there's just a lot of domino effects that's happening within the job market, within our society. And as a young person, it's rough to navigate the workforce. Because let's say you study at university, at college. The moment when you start going out there to look for jobs, they don't want to hire you because they want somebody who has years of experience to back up what they've studied. And it's like, where do we go? Society hasn't created a bridge for us Gen Z people to fully transition into adulthood. Yet they blame us for being almost stuck in like a Peter Pan phase, where we're still kind of like kids. We're still living with our parents, still watching cartoons, still playing video games. But it's not just that, because you could argue that there are other jobs that you can get in different domains that will allow you to work with them. But there is another domino effect of inflation. Prices are rising up, and it's a global phenomenon. Things are just becoming more and more expensive. Paying for rent is becoming more expensive. Then there's another domino that falls, the consolidation of wealth. These mega corporations around the world that find ways to not pay tax, that find ways to pay slave wages to some people and sell you a cheap product and then give you credit that you really shouldn't have. And then it puts you into this debt cycle that you shouldn't be in. And that's another domino effect. And then there's politics. Politics becomes more polarized and extreme because of algorithms. And then there's another domino of companies are hiring less people to get more out of them. And then there's another domino of now that we are almost a global society, we're not just competing with people in our village, in our town, in our area. We are competing on a global scale. Therefore, everything is about go, 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 go. Speed. And this fast-paced kind of life that many of us are living makes us burnt out because us human beings are not naturally designed to be constantly producing. We need downtime. And many times we're putting in more than we're getting out. My generation is having a lot of changes that are happening from all corners. This is not a natural, normal change that has happened in previous generations. Yes, previous generations had a lot of change. They were fighting for our freedom, our rights to be able to choose, for women's rights. But we are dealing with so much change that it's almost paralyzing. We have more technology than any other generation, yet we are working harder than any other generation ever has. It's almost like as the technology becomes faster and more advanced, it's almost like we are running after technology. We're trying to catch up. We're running this marathon, and there's this new artificial intelligence kid who's on the block, and he's running faster than everybody else, and we're meant to try to catch up with that guy. And then we hear the advice that the older generation tells us of how to live a happy life. The happy life model of you go to school, you go to university or college, you get the car, you get the house, you get the wife or husband, and you get married. And we are observing the generation that is slightly older than us. And they are miserable in that life. It doesn't work for them. They're not happy. That traditional route of how to create your career, we're observing that, and it's just a big highway that's stuck in traffic. There's a lot of people there, and everybody's trying to squeeze their way in and trying to, it's almost luck that's defining your journey there. And the people who do get lucky are still not happy because the workforce is different. The amount of blood, sweat, and tears that you're putting into your work, you're getting paid pennies as a result of it. And whatever pennies you get, tax comes and takes a certain percentage of that money. And you don't work to live anymore. You live to work. And the old model of how to pursue your life, how to pursue your career, that's what you get. You live to work. You're a slave. They pay you enough so that you can pay for your car, your rent, your groceries, and that's about it. And maybe a slight entertainment over here to distract you from the misery of your life so that you can come back to work and get back straight into it. No wonder my generation is just so unmotivated with life. Because as we're moving into the world, it's like the world is trying to turn us into machines, feeling nothing, thinking nothing, and just producing constantly. And my generation just wonders, when does this all of this production, when does it end? Or at least, when does it all slow down? So that we can enjoy our experience here. So that we can enjoy life and existence itself. Aren't machines and technology meant to liberate us? Is the purpose of my existence just to grind and just be another cog in the machine. And the smarter ones amongst us, of my generation, are developing entrepreneurial skills and starting businesses of their own because we have all of this technology and we're living in an age of the internet, the information age. We are creating unconventional ways of generating money, starting YouTube hustles, social media, developing a skill and selling a course, working from home, and many other ways of making money that isn't traditional in nature. And sure, the older generations tell us those aren't real jobs and that, we should get a real job, quote unquote. But we are observing some of our brothers and sisters getting stuck in the rabbit holes of debt and slavery within the normal ways of doing things. And we don't want to fall into the same trap. I see a lot of people who keep talking about how they want to overcome the system, but they never do. People talk about how they want to leave the matrix, quote unquote, but they never do. I have seen some of my closest friends get lost into their jobs, too tired and burnt out to even do anything productive with me that's outside of work, to hustle together. I see this progression of mindset within them too, like the way they think even changes. Just a slow burn into apathy towards life and settle for a life that's not theirs, and probably making their parents proud because they got the certificate, the degree, the job, but they're secretly not happy, but gaslighting themselves into believing because things aren't bad, because things are good enough, they should be happy. And so they spend the rest of their lives doing the same things because of fear of the unknown. And then they grow up and raise their children to do the same thing. Society itself just becomes this big concentration camp, where the camp has been built by the inmates themselves, and the inmates are the gods, and they have this sense of pride and ego and this thing that they've built. They've built their own prison, and so they exist in this sort of schizophrenia where they are both the gods and the prisoners. And as a result, they no longer having lobotomized the capacity to leave the prison they've made, or even to see it as a prison. But hey, that's enough for me today, folks. I still have a lot that I would like to say on this topic, so I may make a part 2 of this video. I'd like to leave this topic on a positive note, but I can only do that in the next video because it's quite a lot that I would like to say, and there is a lot of good that's coming as a result of the world that we live in that I'd like to touch on. But with all that said, thank you for listening, and until all are one.